Alright, welcome back home racing fans. Boy, if you thought the other episodes were exciting, now we're going to talk about gears. I know, calm down, please. I know, I get excited too. There's something I want to address though that had some comments on the videos and great feedback, and I appreciate it. I just want to remind everybody that this is just my method. If you have a different method that you prefer, please keep doing what you're doing. Share your methods with other people. If you feel there's a better way, then please share it. That's exactly what all this is about, is helping each other. So if you've got a better technique than I do, I can learn from you too. Hey, I want to hear it. I want to see it. So there really isn't a wrong way. It's just the way that you prefer. Now we're going to talk about gears. And before we get started, you'll notice this big notch that I've cut out here in this chassis. And remember, we marked it, the area, in the last video, so I know exactly where I'm going to go. And it's quite a large notch. So what I usually do is I just use a Dremel. I start out with a milling bit like this. You can use a bigger one, a larger one if you want to, or you can just get started and then you can clean it up with an X-Acto blade. So the first question is why? Well, I'm going to show you why. So with a standard Carrera crown gear, we're talking normally 1450 millimeter diameter of the crown gear. I use slotted gears almost exclusively. I just like their gears when you can get them. Sometimes it's very challenging to get them, but I prefer just to use slotted as a standard for all of my builds, not just for the Carrera cars, but scratch build cars, other cars too. So I just kind of like the slotted brand. But when you check those, you're looking at a big difference there, 1526. And if you move up and you like a different gear ratio, so let's just move up to a 28, you'll notice it gets even bigger. So I can tell you right now that in this particular Carrera chassis, if there was a contest to see how close you could get a gear without rubbing the chassis, it would be the slotted 27 tooth crown in here. And it's just too close for comfort, for me, so I open it up. Now, especially if you're going to go to the larger gear like that, you're going to have to go ahead and open this up. It doesn't hurt the chassis, doesn't hurt anything, and you don't really need to go that wide. I'll show you why I go that wide, but you don't need to go that wide if you don't want to. Now, is there an alternative? Of course there is. NSR makes a gear, a crown gear. They do make a 27, and when you measure it, oh, there we go. It's slippery little rascal. It's real close to the stock size of a Carrera, and then you would need to cut the notch. But some people will say, hey, I thought that NSR, their axles and stuff were slightly smaller than the standardized slotting plus. And it's true. Except these gears are a perfect fit. They're bored for 3/32, and when you test fit these NSR gears on a standard, slotting plus axle, and you put them on there is no free play, and I mean they fit wonderfully. So you could use this gear, and if you're happy with 27 as your number, as your gear, then you wouldn't have to do that mod. Oddly enough, this gear, when it's put on an NSR axle and you slip it on, it has a little bit of free play. So these gears are actually better fit on a slotted axle as it is an NSR. This happens to come from the latest F1 car as an example, and it's hard to show you. This is more about feel. I can feel the free play, and that's what we don't want. That's why we're doing this whole mod, to get rid of a lot of the slop. But it does fit very well on these axles. I mean, very precision. Just as good as a slotted. I mean, there's just no play. That's exactly what we want. So I'm going to go with slotted over the NSR. And the only reason that I suggest that is that what if you want to go to different gear ratios? They are very limited on their gearing. You can go down to 24, 23, something like that, 25, 24, but they don't go higher than 27. So if you want more teeth on your crown, if you want to go up to a 28, then you're going to have to go slotted. You could go Scale Auto 2, it doesn't matter. These are just the two brands that I use, but specifically I just choose slotted. So now you know why I've done this, but now I'll show you another reason why I made it a little bit wider. Alright, so why did I make it that wide? Well, one of the main reasons is that making it this wide gives me access to the set screw. So I cut it just enough to where I can still get a wrench in there, and I can tighten this up if it loosens. Sometimes they always loosen up no matter what you do. You can flat spot the axle, all those good things, but sometimes over time they come loose, and it's nice to be able to get a wrench in there and tighten it up. So that's really my main reason. Like I said, you don't have to go that wide. You can make this a lot thinner if you want to. I just find it convenient that if that happens, I don't have to take the body off. It just saves me a little time, and I can get down there and tighten it up. Alright, so it was brought to my attention that I did forget a very important part in part 1 when we were discussing all of our parts, and that was the pinion. And you definitely want to change the pinion. Well, why is that? Well, these plastic pinions just aren't that durable, and over time they're prone to cracking. You'll get splits right in here between the teeth, and trust me, you'll know it when it happens. That's the main reason, is the durability of these just isn't that great. So what pinion do you choose? Well, again, I'm going to go with the slotted 5.5 millimeter and 9-tooth pinion. I'm keeping the same gear ratio. That's what works on our track. And you need to use the 5.5 millimeter. Well, why is that? Well, in traditional inline, just like the cars here, your motor is going to sit here, and you'll notice the motor shaft inside the boss there, inside the crown, and that keeps the side-to-side free play, right? Keeps your axle from moving back and forth, right? And that means you can only use one size pinion, and that's 5.5. So that's what you're going to want. Now, as far as getting the pinion off of here, I can tell you now, you've seen people do this before with these plastic pinions, and they just take a screwdriver and pop them right off. Does it harm the motor doing that? Probably not. There's not a lot of pressure here. You could do that. But then again, I'm always going to say, why take that chance? Just get a good extractor. If you've got a combination slotting plus pinion puller press, then you can use that. This old Huddy's been around for a long time. I still use it. It's just easy, lightweight, and they're easy enough to use. And this thing is just like taking nothing. There's really no pressure. Like I said, some of these pinions will actually spin on the motor shaft. It's rare, but well, you'll know that whine when it happens. Anyway, it doesn't take very much to get this off of here. It's just basically, yeah, that's it. And so now we've gotten rid of that. Now we can install our new pinion. So this is where you're going to need your press. Press the new pinion on, and you're good to go. And remember, this goes for other aftermarket motors. We're just using the Carreras here because they work, and we have a fleet of these cars with these motors. They're pretty good motors overall. So I'm going to keep the stock motor, but if you're going to go to aftermarket, again, you're going to want these pinions. And it's good to have these, because not only in this car, but in other cars in your collection, those plastic pinions over time, they can crack, they will break, and I just don't see the sense in ordering other plastic ones when you can get a good quality gear. So, hope that helps you. We're going to get this pinion installed here. We're going to get it in our press and install it, and then we'll get on to the next part. Alright, so if you're new to putting on pinions on the motors, there's something you need to know. I think it's rather important. You don't want to press the pinion on too far. So this is probably about as far as I go. I kind of do it by sight these days. You don't want to put that pinion up against the motor, because then you won't be able to fit your puller behind it. So for example, the thickness of the hoodie here is let's see here, 091, and we'll go ahead, let's zero that out, and this is the slot that goes with this particular kit, and we'll do that one, and 0.86. So I just the motor shaft moves a little bit, so you'll be okay, but just don't go too far, because you're going to want to adjust this pinion to get it right where you want it when you install it in the car. Now you can cheat a little bit. As you can see here, I have a feeler gauge, very inexpensive feeler gauge. I'm not going to say it's that accurate, you know, but it does the job, and you can see that I've cut a notch in here, and you know, if it makes you feel safer to do so, and some people do, then you can slip this behind once you cut it, and to make sure that you don't press it on too far. But I really don't use that anymore. I just do it by sight. And now we'll install it in the car, and we'll talk about you know, the adjustments that you're going to have to make to get that pinion exactly where you want it. Alright, so we're going to talk about adjusting that pinion, why it's important. As you can see here, I have it installed in the car temporarily just to show you. But what you don't want is you don't want the face of the pinion rubbing the boss of the crown right here. That's not good. We don't want any rubbing there. And at the same time, we want to try to center these teeth on this pinion for full contact. So I think you can see that. So everything looks pretty good. You notice our motor shaft right there. There's just a small amount of gap. You see it there? You don't want the motor shaft rubbing the inside of the boss right here against that. Sometimes you have to cut or sand or file that motor shaft down a little bit, but as you can see, there we go, there's no rubbing, but it's still centering just like the stock one did. So that's basically how I set them up. Everything's looking pretty good, and I'm looking forward to getting to the next step. But anyway, I hope that helps you guys just getting started, and we'll just keep going.